Jack Miller, welcome to Jewish Money Matters. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
My pleasure to be with you virtually and be with your audience virtually. I'm excited.
Yes, this is gonna be fun. We got to meet at a leadership summit ran by JLI. That was a fun panel over there on philanthropy and education. And that's how I got to know a little bit about you and your work. You are the CEO of Gelt Financial. And just for listeners, and I want everybody to Google this, especially those who are in the investing in real estate space. This is very important. So a commercial private non-bank lender, right? That's what you guys do at Gelt?
That's correct. Borrowers who are either commercial property or investment. We don't do properties where you're going to live in it. In other words, when
Right.
you're home. But if you're buying an investment property, we could finance that. And we always tell people we're an alternative to a bank. Our borrowers are coming to us either because they don't have time to go to a bank.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll take us for a bridge loan for a short period and then
Mm-hmm.
pay us off with bank financing, or they can't go to a bank or don't want to go to a bank for different reasons. So they
Yeah.
come to us. We're an alternative to a bank.
Yeah. So it's like creative lending, like you find creative solutions for people who have investment properties they're involved in, right?
100%. We're an alternative. And I'm so lucky. People think we're lenders and, oh, you're bad guys, you're lenders, you charge higher than bank. Our borrowers are so grateful for us because we
I
move
see.
very fast and they usually can't or don't want to go to a bank. So they're unbelievably grateful to us and
Mm-hmm.
appreciative to be able to use our capital to make money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ultimately, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I see you guys are doing a great job and you're not newbies at this. Jack, you started this company in 1989. That's crazy.
Well, I know it seems like a long time ago, but when you're living it, it goes by fast.
Yeah,
Life goes by fast, and for the most part, it's been a lot of fun. 99.9% of the days, I love what I'm doing, and I can't wait to wake up and check my phone and answer emails, and I'm on the phone 24, 6.
Wow.
I love it. It's a passion of mine, but it's a lot of fun. It really doesn't feel like work.
So wait, I actually do want to dive into that a little bit further down the line, especially because you have something very nice in your LinkedIn banner that I'll mention it to listeners in a minute. But before I go down that path, I do want you to take us to the beginning. How did you start, Gail? Like what were you doing before? What inspired the idea?
Well, so before, the truth is, I was fumbling around before. I
Okay.
was doing a little of this, a little of that, all in the real estate space and lending space. But
Uh-huh.
what happened was, I was fumbling around. I met my wife, and I literally, a mortgage company accepted me. I don't know how, I had no experience. I applied.
Mm-hmm.
God, I don't know. Hashem must have been looking down, and I don't know what these people were thinking. They hired me and they said, "You're in charge of Philadelphia. Go, no training." Bottom line, I taught myself the business, and I was
Uh-huh.
very, very successful. I was there for about 2 years, and
Okay.
I was unhappy. I was making a lot of money, all commission, but doing very well. And I was just unhappy. And I told my wife I'm going to leave. And believe it or not, the day my firstborn son was born from the hospital bed, I called my boss and I said, I'm done. I'll give you 30 days notice. I told my wife, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't deal with it anymore. And long story short, I fell and I started Gelt. But the truth is, I lucked out because I married the right woman. And
Okay.
all of my success and anything I do positively, it lies at the hands and the footsteps of my wife.
Wow.
All the success of every man lies at their spouse. And
Wow.
that's been my case. My wife gets all the credit for everything. She really
W-
does. So
Wow.
but I started Gelt. I got lucky, but I loved it. I loved it. And that's what made it successful. Because when you like to do something or you love to do something, it's not a chore. It's not unusual for me to work Sunday night till 3 in the morning or Sundays or Thanksgiving or any days I can.
Right.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, I do recall. I think my husband told me that you're already at a stage where I think you and your wife take a vacation once a month or something like that. You guys make it an intentional thing to go away.
Well, the truth is that's correct. Your husband's right. I told him that. The truth is Jack Miller does not like to go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I find no utility in it. It has no purpose for me.
Because
So
you love what you do so much.
I
So
do. I do. So what am I going to go see? A rock or a river or a forest? I couldn't care less, to be honest with you. I don't mean to be rude. So what I call is a compromise. We live in South Florida, and the ports are, 20 minutes, a half hour away. So we try once a month. And I'm a little embarrassed to say this. I know this is going to be public, but whatever, I'll go for it. We try to go on a cruise.
it's
And it's a good
beautiful.
compromise thing because I work most of the day. I'm in the room on the laptop. People don't know you're away. You have cell service and in today's world, and my wife's happy. And in the evenings, we go to show, whatever. She's happy and I'm happy. So we do it.
Very nice. Well, it's an investment in the relationship. That's important.
Yeah, my wife's totally in charge. If she tells me to show up, I show up.
I love it. Okay, well, wait. So you get this first job, and was it because you were really good at sales? Were you a numbers guy? Like, what was the thing that they saw in you that you think that,
I have no clue what they saw in me. I didn't
like,
know anything. I happen to be dyslexic, so I screw up a lot of stuff.
uh-huh,
And but I could tell you so many funny stories along the way. People wouldn't believe them, but whatever. I was very successful. I had a drive in me and a determination, and I
okay.
wanted to be successful. And I'm not the guy who things work out for the first time. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hit the hammer on the nail the first time. I miss a lot. I miss
Mm-hmm.
a lot of swings at the baseball. I miss a
Oh,
lot. I strike out a lot, but I'm
uh-huh.
dogged about that. I never thought that I had a choice but to be successful. So when I miss, I pick myself up and just keep going. And I
Wow.
had the ability to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without hesitation. There was no laziness. I just was a machine and just kept, and I still am. I just keep going and going and going. And
Uh-huh.
I love it, but it wasn't work to me. It wasn't work to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then when you hit that point where something about it you weren't loving anymore and you felt the need, at that point you just wanted to be on your own, or you wanted to be your own boss, was that it?
No, no. I didn't want to be on my own. The truth is, the company wasn't treating me great. It was a lot of aggravation. At one point, you don't want to hear it, but I was driving down 95 in Philadelphia, and back then we had beepers. We didn't have cell phones. I was so stressed out, I threw the beeper out the window. I
Oh my
couldn't take
gosh.
it anymore, and that's so unlike me. But I would, if I didn't leave, I would have had a heart attack at 23,
Oh
been
gosh.
divorced, alcohol, drugs,
God
had an affair.
forbid.
I was under a lot of stress and I wasn't happy anymore. And
Uh-huh.
I really wasn't planning on continue to starting Gelt. I just said, let me do this until I find something else. And
Uh-huh.
then when I became self-employed, I realized I kind of like it. I just didn't like the company I was with, and I didn't like
Mm-hmm.
the service they were providing. I can do it better.
Uh-huh.
So one thing led to another, but I really wasn't planning on doing it for long. I figured, okay, I'll just do this part-time until I find something else that I like.
Oh, wait. So the idea to start lending on your own was just kind of like, let me just fumble with this until I find something else. You weren't thinking entrepreneurship. You weren't thinking I'm gonna create a real estate empire and
No, no, it's all Hashem just gave it to me. It really wasn't that way. The truth is, I was thinking about opening up a bagel store in a local mall,
no
which
way.
I think I had a deposit down, or we were at the final stages, and I pulled out of it. Thank Baruch Hashem, I did. Thank God. And whatever, it worked out. But yeah, no, there was no master plan. It's you just wake up every morning. You go to war with what ammunition you have. You do the best you can with what you can. And then, at night you say, okay, this is the new ammunition I have. Let's redo it. And that's sort of how my life has been. You just do the best you can every day. No master plan, no master plan at all.
So interesting. I'm so glad that you're being so honest about this, because sometimes people feel like, you have to be so strategic and you have to have it all figured out.
I'll tell you what I was worried about. I just had a baby. He was a month old when I started on my own. I needed a parnassa. I needed to feed my kid. I needed
Right.
to feed my wife. I had a mortgage payment, car payments, all the normal things that the rest of us had. And my initial thoughts were I needed to make, I don't remember what it was then, X
Whatever it was.
dollars to
Right.
pay for my expenses. Everything's a fortune. Uh,
Right.
So no, it just one thing led to another, and I was successful and kept going with it.
Right. But you could have just applied and probably find another job with another lender or whatever, but you
Yeah,
went a little bit unconventional. So,
100% for me, for a lot of reasons, working with someone or working for someone just wasn't an option.
uh-huh.
Because of the way I work, my mind works,
Right.
because of my dyslexia, just because I'm not wired that way.
Yeah, you had figured it out at that point. So that's also important. You had gained enough experience working for somebody to figure out that this is probably not the best style for me long term.
100%. I knew that I needed to be self-employed, to have the creativity to do what I wanted to do, and the freedom. It's interesting when you're self-employed, you work 24 hours a day to have some free time. I spoke to someone yesterday. He says, "Oh, I was a little jealous of you." He says, "I spoke to you last week and you were at home in a t-shirt at 2 or 3 in the afternoon." I said, "I was, but you didn't see that, I went for a 24-hour period of working straight." So, when you're self-employed, you work double as hard to take
Yeah.
off when you want it, or an hour or two here and there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You mentioned your wife. It's so beautiful to hear. It was very recent. I've had two guests where we've touched on this topic where two scenarios where, perhaps the husband doesn't have like the super long-term plan, super strategic, and the wife has been so supportive, look and said, but you are a responsible person. You have a lot of potential, and that's what I see in you, and that's I believe in it, and then the husbands now say this, it's the credit of my wife who believed, who understood that even if I didn't have all the money in the bank account yet and I didn't have the super plan, I was going to do something for our life together.
Yeah, that's my story. And by the way, I'm 63. We've married, I think 29 years. It's still the same now. It's still the same now. When I'm down, she'll give me encouragement. She'll push me. And she did this when we first met. She embraced me. She believed in me. God knows why, you know what I mean? But she believed in me, and she gave me the courage and to go forward. Without her, I wouldn't have gone forward,
Yeah,
clearly.
yeah. I think wives of entrepreneurs, and I'm including myself in this group, we get a little bit extra merit because it can be a real roller coaster.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
But
mhm.
100%.
So how does that, I'm curious, now you're so many years down the line and this is your bread and butter, but how does that first deal happen? Do you get other people to help you finance the first deal? Did you have personal money and how does that first deal happen to you to, you know,
It comes a little bit of, opportunity knocks for everyone. Some people I've learned don't answer the door.
yeah.
So you have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to answer the deal and be quick to put a deal together.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens. I can't remember the first deal, to be blunt. I wish I remember a lot in the beginning, but not the first
Really?
deal.
You don't?
Not really, because there's I wish I could tell you I did. I just don't.
Uh-huh.
But it's a combination. It's a combination. We partner. We're very lucky. And just to put it in some numbers, we've done well over $1 billion in financing and well over 10,000 loans. I think it's like 13,000 something in loans. Again, it's over 30, 7 years. So but $1 billion is a lot of money. And what we typically do, we've been very lucky the past 15 years, we've been able to partner with some high net worth individuals who
Uh,
co-invest with us. So a typical example, let's say, I'm just going to pick a round number. We'll close a loan for $500,000.
uh-huh.
We'll close it. We're done. It's closed. The borrower has the money. What we'll do is we'll reach out to some partners we have, present them the loan, and maybe they'll take 400,000 of it. They'll co-invest with us, and we take the rest of it, or whatever numbers. So we have a lot of partners in our deals. And
Mm-hmm.
the other side is these partners have started out as financial partners, and they still are. But a lot of them have become dear friends over the years, over the deals, over the decades. A couple of them were unfortunately, some of them passed away. So we're on the second generation where we're dealing with the kids now. So that's
Wow.
sort of another side of the business that we've got to meet. I've gotten to meet and partner with some fantastic people who we co-invest. They co-invest with us all the time.
Wow, that's really neat. Now, let me ask you this, Jack, because so much, and this is more shifting to, I guess, the personal finance side of things. So, which, in entrepreneurship, I feel like your relationship with money anyway, like it become in Spanish, we have an expression for it, but it becomes very real. Like you're gonna face it at some point, right? You can't you have to like come to terms or with your relationship with money. What So much of that relationship has to do with what we experienced as children, right? Our, memories of childhood, the home we were raised in. Are there any things that stand out in terms of your upbringing with money that you feel shaped you in that regard? What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, so very perceptive, and I agree with you. It has a lot to do with childhood, but I'll give you the answer to that in a second. But I have to tell you, one of the reasons I agreed to do this because I believe personal finance is so important to our community.
Yeah,
And I think it's not taught in school. A lot of people don't learn it till they're too old to really. And I think I applaud you for bringing it to the forefront because I
thank
think
you.
it's critical. And I think every family should learn personal finance.
Yeah.
And it's investing money, it's credit card, it's debt, it's everything. So I think it's critical. And as a sidebar, I love personal finance. It's sort of a thing of mine. So
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, look, I grew up, my parents were, it didn't feel like we were poor, but we were lower middle class. I don't know. My father was struggling. He worked 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I saw my father just work constantly and
Wow.
never be comfortable and always, so to speak, be under pressure.
Ay.
Um, he was very generous with us as kids, but I saw that and it took an effect. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be always that pressure.
Hmm.
It absolutely had an effect. They're great parents, they did the best they can, but they didn't start to really be financially successful when they were maybe too old to enjoy it.
Hmm.
And I knew for me, I didn't want to put my kids or my wife or whoever through that journey. And I was lucky. I was lucky. I could do it.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much of it is also like you said at the beginning, right? It's a blessing from Hashem. You could try all you want, but like it comes, there's also a bracha that you get that this worked out for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, we all have talents in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
We're all we all can do different things. I can't play sports. I have no musical talent. I can't learn another language. There's things I can't do, but there's
Right,
things I can do. So we
right,
need to do what I believe Hashem gave us all gifts, and any talents we have, Hashem gave it to us.
right.
It's our obligation to use it out, that talent, the best that we can for the world, for humanity, for our families. There's certain
Yes.
things I just cannot do. I don't have the skills. I'm not adapt to it. But there's other things I can do. So
Yeah.
I view it as my obligation to do what Hashem gave me the ability to do.
I'm so with you on that. And that's exactly what you have on your LinkedIn post. And it's so funny because as I was preparing for this interview, I understand perfectly well what you guys do. And my husband is also kind of in that world. And I always joke that even though I actually come from the investment banking world, and you would think that I could do this type, I could do lending and I worked on the lending side, it's totally not my thing. Like I know I shouldn't be doing that with my life. And I'm grateful that I'm not because I have other talents. But you have on your LinkedIn profile, you have this phrase. I'm actually looking at it right now. Everyone reading this is an amazing talent that the world needs. And I love that you put that there because I don't know if it's the same with you, but I find a lot of people, probably people in the audience, people that I relate to that write into the show or whatever, are struggling, Jack, to find what is quote unquote their thing, right? What is it that they're here to contribute and to align their pursuit of livelihood with that thing, that unique talent that they have to offer. So let's talk about you because as someone who's made a lot of money in your business, um, and now you told us that you kind of fell into it, but at some so you didn't choose this path consciously knowing that it was aligned with your talents, but it's somewhere along the line you realized that it was, right? So
Yeah, 100%. Look, when I started to achieve success, I said, why fight it effectively?
Mm-hmm.
No, I
But you
knew.
loved it from the beginning. So I think,
I did.
and that was also muzzle because some people, have to try several things until they realize what is it that really they're so good at doing.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I agree 100% with you. It's a little mazel, but the truth is, with me, I've pivoted. So even though we've been in business since February 1st, 1989,
Uh-huh.
and the company 100% is 37 years old or whatever that is, but every periodic period, I have to adjust the business
Mm,
around the economy, me, what's going on in my world. So I pivoted the business numerous times, and it's a continuing thing because the economy is always changing. I'm
mm-hmm.
always changing. So
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted, 20 years ago, or wanted and needed 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, when I had to raise kids and have the tuition and the day school and all that stuff, I don't need now. So I reinvent the business, and I feel like I'm driving and constantly adjusting
Mm-hmm.
direction of the business based on the economy and what works for me.
Right. I like that because that also speaks to that creative side that you said that you wanted to be able to have that creativity. So entrepreneurship in a way allows you to look at the world around you and say, where do I want to change? What needs to happen now? You can be creative in that sense.
I believe you have to be creative and you constantly have to pivot because the world's changing and you're changing.
Yeah.
And I believe if I just kept the business the same, we wouldn't be here. We need to change with the world. And
Right.
as a result of it, very few companies in my space have been around this long. Every
Mm-hmm.
economic cycle, they get wiped out. But we've been able to pivot and navigate change. And I've changed. My wants and desires and goals are totally different now
Mm-hmm.
than they were 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me
And
ask. Mm-hmm.
I'm a
Sorry.
big believer. I don't mean to interrupt. People need to embrace change. Unfortunately or unfortunately, we live in a world of very fast changes. And I don't
Yeah,
want to debate whether that's good or not. I didn't create it, it's here.
it
But
is.
it's the only thing you can be. Look, unfortunately, death and change is the only thing you can be sure of. You
And
know,
taxes too, or no taxes, no taxes.
I don't know. You can always move to a tax-free place, but things are always changing. And I've always tried to embrace change, not look at
Mm.
it as a negative,
Mm-hmm.
but say, okay, look, we all get bad things happen to us. We need to flip the bad and
Mm-hmm.
make it good.
Yeah.
We need to take whatever's negative and flip it and make it a better situation for us.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm a firm believer in that. And also sometimes it takes pausing, right? Like I know like for myself, I'm such a big action taker that it's almost like I thrive in being in motion and I struggle with like taking a pause and allowing the change to kind of like sitting with it and seeing what is the direction rather than like right away jumping at the latest idea that I'm having up, so that's, some people are more like thinkers and some are more doers. I'm more of the doer, so I always have to like balance myself check but try to balance.
Yeah, look, I know for me it's a balance, and I find downtime, whether it be Shabbos or Sunday or a Yontif, I can think. Where during the course of the day, you go from meeting to meeting, it's hard
Yeah,
to think. So
yeah.
I think, and I'm big on keeping notes and keeping lists, and make the appropriate change as you see fit. But I agree, it's hard sometimes. It's hard.
Now, going back to this idea of aligning our mission with our money, our profit with our purpose, kind of like doing what you're supposed to be doing, using your unique talent in the world. For people in the audience listening to us, and given that you've had so many years of experience, what do you think? What's the piece of advice that you could give people who are in that place where they just want to find their thing? What is something that we can give them from your experience? And I'm sure you've mentored many people also along the way.
You have to be true to yourself
Hmm.
and know what you like to do, and go with it. Use your talents to go with it, whatever your talents are. Hopefully, your talents matches your likes. It's sad when you see someone who's capable of being a concert pianist who hates to play piano. That's
Yeah,
sad.
no, it needs to be go to hand, and you have to have
And
both.
yeah, but I would tell you, look, life is short, and there's no dress rehearsals. This is
Yeah.
it. And I would tell you, find something that you like to do and do it. I know it's hard to make those changes,
Yeah.
but if you don't make them, you're going to be you're going to, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, we get one life. It's so refreshing for me to hear it from somebody of your level of experience, because I wish when I had was early on in my career, honestly, like I don't know what were career counselors doing. Nobody was talking about this, Jack. Like I ended up working on Wall Street just because that's where the money was. I was checking boxes. Like this is what a girl with my education has to do. You know what I mean? Like, but I never contemplated like what am I good at? What do I really like? It was maybe my parents didn't have these conversations. I'm not sure, but I don't think any of my peers, I don't think we were thinking like that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I get it. A lot of people don't, I remember the time where I decided I was going through a particularly hard time in business and I knew I had
Hmm.
to reinvent myself. But there were certain things in my life that were giving me a lot of stress and I was unhappy about.
Hmm.
And it was over two airplane rides. I remember where I was going. And what I did was I made a list of everything in my life that was giving me stress. Now, if you start to do that, some of the things are very difficult because it's not like, oh, get a new car
Right.
get a password program that memorizes your password. Some of them are relationship driven.
Right. They're difficult to let go of, you're saying.
That's correct. But
Hmm.
I first started out, I said, let me make a list of everything that I could think of that's giving me solace, giving me
Hmm.
stress. And then once it was on paper, I sort of organized it in different things that were easy mechanical.
Hmm.
At the time, passwords are just coming about. So I said, okay, get a password program to track all my passwords. That's easy.
Right.
But some of them were relationship driven.
Hmm.
And those longtime partners, family who was giving me source, whatever it may be, but at least I had it on a list. And sometimes you can't deal with things. Sometimes you just can't, or you're not willing to. And there were some
Hmm.
of those too. But a lot of it, and by the way, I still maintain that list. I update it now all the time,
Wow.
and I keep it top secret password protected because I wouldn't want anyone to see it. But and at least when I look at it, it helps me prioritize what's important, what's not important. And when it's in my list, I could start to address them. Even if it's making little changes or having tough conversations or whatever it is, but if it's in a finite form,
Hmm.
it's easier for me to deal with rather than ignoring.
I really like that. I really like that. As I hear us talking and it's almost like this is coming. I don't know if you've ever learned the gate of trust. Have you ever learned the gate of trust?
Of course, I'm studying it now. Your
Oh, good.
husband's an inspiration.
Oh, really? Oh, very nice. Beautiful. So all of this is straight from chapter 3. And a lot of people have a lot of resistance to this because they'll hear us talk about this a little bit, but I have to pay the bills, right? And we're kind of trying to push them into this place of bitachon of like, find the thing that you love and you're good at and, give it a shot. Don't hold yourself back. But for many people, it just takes a tremendous, it's a test of bitachon, basically.
It's hard. It really is hard to get, life can punch you in the face sometimes, and it's hard to get back up, and it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to keep going sometimes. Everyone gets it. It is different for some people, but everyone has issues with their
Right.
family.
We're all going to get punched.
Everyone has issues with their kids, with their parents, with their siblings, whatever. And it's really hard. Somehow you have to muster the strength to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot for me has been about faith.
Yeah.
I always knew Hashem put me in this position. There must be a reason. And looking back at it, the worst parts of my life, the things that gave me the most stress, I look back now and I said, oh, it was for a good reason. I'm glad I didn't go down this road. I went down this road. It was a disaster at the time. I cried at the time,
Yeah.
but oh, Hashem had a better plan for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I would have kept going on this road, something would happen. But it's hard when you're facing bad things. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a lot of presence of mind to bring and say, okay, this is happening. There must be something really, really good. And I'm just gonna trust the process and go with that.
Yeah, at least very hard for me. Everyone's different, but it's very hard for me. But somehow life works out that way.
And I think that's also, where I get going back to the partner. They say like the most important financial decision you make in your life is the person you choose to marry, right? Is that's you've heard that before?
It's the most important decision anyone will make in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. 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 So you've sort of alluded to it a little bit before. Any any financial challenges or quote unquote failures that you've experienced that now you can caution us on or give us, some of the lessons that you learned, quote unquote, the hard way?
It's been so many.
Really?
It's been so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, the big public ones that cost me the most
Mm-hmm.
were chances that I took in business
Uh-huh.
that I did the right thing at the time. They just didn't work out right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
again, maybe it was the timing was off. Maybe Hashem wanted it that way. It was the economy. It was that way. But I wish I would have been. Most people can't change that, and I wouldn't change it. I would still
Right.
take those chances. But I wish I would have been more focused on my finances when I was younger and retirement accounts and all of the things that people should be focused on. I was focused, don't misunderstand, but there's little things here and there which make a big difference
Yeah. Yeah.
as you get older. So absolutely, but everyone will figure it out. You just have to focus on it.
So interesting because you did mention to me that you happen to love personal finance. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because it is something really important. And sometimes we wake up to this whole money management thing a little bit later in life, and it's like, oh, had I started to pay more attention earlier, it would have been it would have had a great effect. So were you always like financially? I'm talking personal finance. Were you always financially literate? Like, did you always like it in
Uh,
terms of?
Yeah, I always loved it, not like love.
Wow.
I always, I'm the kind of guy who I love the stock market and I love reading. I read prospectuses and the press releases, and
No, you don't. You
I,
do?
I do, and I analyze them. There's a bunch of companies I follow, so I have my own spreadsheets on them.
Oh,
Uh,
Jack, are you serious?
all kinds of weird stuff. I have no hobbies. I don't play golf. I don't play tennis. I don't watch sports. So what do I do? I work. I go to show. What do I do?
Right.
So I've always loved it. I always loved math, the compounding effect of interest. So I always loved that. I always was paid attention to the tax effect of dollars instead of what you're just
Wow.
making. Figure out what's the after-tax benefits to things, Roth IRAs, health savings accounts, all of that stuff. I always loved it.
Wow. So did you pass it on to your kids?
Yeah, I think I did. I never had a conversation, but I have three boys. They're not boys, they're men now. The youngest
Uh-huh.
is 30, the oldest is 36. And they're all, very into personal finance. They're calling me, texting me with different things all the time. One of my 30-year-old gave me a tip a year ago. I'm thinking, why didn't I think of this 5 years ago? So yeah,
Nice.
they enjoy it. They enjoy it as well.
Nice. Nice. I love personal finance. Well, I think you know that. But yeah, no, I'm just kind of like a boring investor. I just like do an index fund and set it and forget it. I'm not reading prospectuses. I'm not doing any of that stuff. You know?
You're much safer, much safer.
Probably, probably. But I'm not a real estate investor yet. So there you go. That's a part that's missing in my life. But we'll get there at some point. That's a goal.
Look, you live in a very tremendous area. It's growing where you are.
I
Go
know.
out and buy a property with your husband, rent it out, and forget about it. Take a
Yes.
20-year loan, and you'll see what'll happen. The rents go up every year, the debt's paid down, and you'll become wealthy by doing it.
Yeah.
Buy boring stuff and don't screw up. It's interesting. We live in a society that if you have a regular job and you make a living, you
Right.
can live a great life if you don't screw it up. Don't get involved with women or men. Don't screw around. Don't get on drugs. Don't gamble. Don't do anything stupid. If you live your life and you just work hard, if you make a decent living and you save it, you will lead a great life. Where I found people get in trouble, I call it self-inflicted wounds, gambling, too much mashka, whatever. They get in trouble with women. They do things that they shouldn't be doing. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't do things you shouldn't be doing, you'll lead a great life. It's a beautiful country. You can live a fantastic life.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But it's funny you bring it up because I find sometimes I would add to that list taking risks that are like beyond how would I say it? Like, I hear people call me all the time. My husband's friend told us at the kiddish that he has a deal for us and he needs the money by Thursday and it's gonna pay us 30%. And it's
Stay
like,
away.
and
Stay
I'm like,
away.
run. No, you're not putting your life savings into that thing. You know what I mean? But so many people are falling for these
Yeah.
silliness.
Well, I get it. It's like so. I've generally been pretty disciplined in that, and I equate it to like buying the lottery. You invest $1 or $5. I don't know how much lottery tickets are, and you want to win $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work that way. And all of those deals, stay away. Keep your money in your pocket. Invest it in something
Right.
and you'll be fine.
Right.
99% of those are failures.
Yes,
It,
thank you.
it,
I'm glad you said it because you're in real estate and like people.
the truth is, and I don't tell too many people this, but why not? Earlier on in my career, I was
Uh-huh.
making good money and I invested in a bunch of businesses like that. People come to me, invest 25, 50, 100 grand. And I did it a lot early on. And you know what I found? All of it, in my case, gone.
No
Nothing.
way.
I got
No way.
nothing for it. But when I invest in what I know, it's fine. I thank God, Baruch Hashem, I learned that early on and it didn't cripple me because I was young enough to make it back. But
Right.
I never made the money that way. I always stick to what I know. And when I stick to what I know, I've done great on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great piece of advice. Like you have to know what you're doing. Don't just because your uncle decided it's a good idea. Well, he knows that, but it's not you.
Yeah. Look,
Yeah.
all the people I invested in were good people. They tried their hardest. But the reality is most businesses fail. Before COVID, I think the number was 85 or 90% of restaurants go out of business within 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So that's just a statistic. And it's
Right.
almost the same for other businesses. So when someone's looking for an investment, I always say, are you guys going to be the one who's going to make it? 90% of them don't make it. I think the
Mm-hmm.
numbers are startling if you Google how many businesses make it to 7 years. I think 90% of them don't make it to 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most of them can't make it. It's very hard. People shouldn't be investing in that stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, going to you, you started Gelt Financial, then eventually you became a real estate investor yourself, right? So,
Well, the truth is, I actually was a real estate investor first.
oh, okay, tell me.
Interesting story. A friend of mine and myself, um, probably when we were 18 or 19 years old, rates were like 16, 17%. We started to buy properties in Philadelphia, and we bought almost 100
What?
properties. By the
Wait,
time
at what age? At what age you were doing
I was probably 18, 19, 20, something of that
that?
nature.
Okay, where did the money come from? Was it bar mitzvah money? What?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we did it. It didn't work out. Let's put it
Okay.
that way. It didn't work out. The guy who was doing it got into some trouble with substance abuse, whatever. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't pretty, but I had a
Okay.
little taste for it. And then I started to buy properties. So I'll fast forward. So that didn't work out. Then before I got married, I bought, I think maybe 4 or 5 properties. Um,
Rentals.
yeah, rentals, and whatever, it was fine. And then I started to buy shopping centers, flex buildings, all kinds of apartment buildings and things like that along the way. So I
Mm-hmm.
sort of, one thing led to another. I find a good deal. I never had the money back then. So I'd call up a friend, hey, do you want a piece of it? Put up some money and whatever. 30 something
Mm-hmm.
years later, it all works out.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So would you become like the general partner in these
Yeah.
deals?
Yep. Most everything I'm the general partner in. And now we have a whole, we don't advertise it, but we're effectively a property management company. We manage properties all over the country now,
Wow.
all types of properties. I have a whole property management staff here, and we manage them.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, going back, we talked about the hobby of looking at companies and prospectuses and all that. Any habits that you practice, and you told us this list that you have about, things that are bothering you in your life that you can go and revisit and change things. But any other things, that any habit that you feel you practice pretty regularly that you think has an impact on your financial life?
Oh, 100%. And there's so
Tell me.
many. It's not one.
Really, tell me.
I live a lifestyle around it. I'm an avid reader, so I'm always reading books.
Me too.
And I don't read fiction. I like
Me
biography,
either. No, no fiction.
biographies. Stories about money, history, all kinds of stuff. I read. Constantly, constantly. I'm spending a vast amount of time reading. And when I watch TV, I'm watching shows that I enjoy. I watch shows about the Gilded Age and the people who've been successful, and I read all that stuff. I read about bankruptcies. I read about failures. So
Mm,
it's a whole lifestyle. It's your thinking.
wow.
I'm not on the golf course playing golf or on the tennis court doing that. It's my life. All my friends I speak to about it. It's just it's everything in life. Everything
Hmm.
in life. Even when you go to shul, I joke around. There's the section of the sports. There's the Sephardic section. All the Sephards sit. I sit with the stock market and real estate guys. 5 or 6 guys I sit with. But it's embarrassing. I shouldn't say this. One guy's into options. He's telling me about options. One guy's also in the real estate business. We're comparing deals. It's my whole life. It's
That
not.
is.
You have to live it. You just can't do it 9 to 5. You're living it. When I'm home, I'm on, whatever we're doing, I'm taking calls, I'm on the sofa answering emails, my wife may be watching a movie or watching TV. I'm reading a book on the sofa, answering texts and emails, looking at comps, looking at properties, studying demographics. So I'm all in. It's not just 9 to 5. 100% of my body is in this.
It's so, I love seeing somebody who's so passionate about what they do, like you're just in your element. It's like it's your playground, it doesn't feel like work.
It's not work. It sounds crazy. I came up with this system because I forget. So I always think of the best ideas in show when I shouldn't be thinking about this stuff. I shouldn't, but what can it's a struggle of mine to
Mhm.
focus. So I have this fakakta system to remember, until after a yontif or a Shabbos is over, even if it's a 3-day yontif, I can remember things because this stupid system I came up with years
What's
ago.
the system?
It's going to sound like I should be. I'm crazy. I make a list, so I'll think of something at 10 at night, okay, and I can't write it down. I can't do anything, so I make a list in my head. One, and I'll say SEO. At two, rent. And I repeat it every time like if I'm up to two, when I come up to three, I said one SEO, two this, three that, and I repeat it. So by the time an afternoon's hit, I'm up to 13 and I've repeated it 100 times already. I know it's crazy. I don't know of another system. It's maybe it's a little OCD. I don't know, but it works for me. You just repeat it enough, and as soon as it's over, whatever it's there. But it's etched in my memory, and very seldom do I forget something.
That is so funny. So after the 3-day yom you already know what you have to do.
I'm up to like 28, but I've repeated it so many times. You just keep repeating it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm getting 90% of it, I would say. Most of the time I'm getting it right after.
Yes, that is so funny. So speaking about, I guess, using our mind, let's go to the mental health topic, because in 2019 you started this beautiful project, the Gelt Charitable Foundation, dedicated to suicide prevention. I think we even have a friend in common. I didn't realize, Lee Yaffe. Um,
Yep.
um,
So
so suicide prevention, mental health. Tell us about this. What does the Gelt Charitable Foundation do, and why? What was the impetus? Was there a personal impetus for this initiative?
no, no, not really. All my mishpocha is Michigan, but they're enjoying it all. They're not, they're,
They're
they're
okay with being crazy.
they're fine. They're fine. No, it's weird how it came about, but it came about because I started to realize a while ago that the Jewish community and the Jewish institutions were not dealing with a lot of the problems within the Jewish world:
Hmm.
suicide, addictions, abuse, all these things at the time. Now it's openly talked about. But
Mm-hmm.
going back 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, you couldn't get uh, a Jewish institution or a rabbi or anyone to really talk about these issues.
Mm.
And I tried to move the needle before we started it. And what happened was, and Lee, by the way, I didn't know you know Lee. I'm Lee's biggest fan. Lee is such a talented person in everything she does. She is a superstar
She's a superstar.
beyond proportions. What happened was I was sitting in bed one Sunday night, and a friend of mine called me. I live in Boca Raton, from Crown Heights, and said, "Hey, do you know anything about this suicide prevention that's going on in that went on in Boca today?" Mendy, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about it. I thought it was your show. No. Anyway, I found out who it was. I called up Lee and whatever, another beautiful young lady at the time, and I said, "What are you doing?" She told me. I said, "Why aren't you doing this more? Our community needs this help." She says, "We don't have the money to do it." I said, "Listen to me, that's taken care of." And make a
Wow.
long story short, we started to do it. We formed the Gelt Charitable Foundation, who does a lot of other things. The suicide gets a lot of the press because whatever it does. And then we did it very well during COVID. I think we put, I'm going to say 20 something thousand people through our programs at the Gelt Charitable Foundation. If you see something, say something. An
Wow.
unbelievable amount of people. We actually trained the Boston Fire Department. Lee and Ella went to Boston for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. We trained, I think it was 10 or 14,000 first responders in Boston. And it was very brave of them to do it because most first line of defenses don't want to do it. And then at one point, I use the word spin off um, to the long short road, which Lee runs, and
Right.
it's being done under that now. But
Yeah, they're doing tremendous work. They're doing fabulous work.
when I used to be down and we all get down, we used to keep, at least still does it, but I don't do it anymore because it's a long short road. But we used to keep a log of call-ins, not names. Mother called in about her husband, and Lee used to mark it down, and I used to look, and when you think you have problems, when you read about other people's sources, you feel so good. I don't want to feel good on anyone else's sources, but it just puts it in perspective. And I can tell you that I'm so proud of the work. And Lee really did all the work. Lee did all the work. She gets all the credit, but I got to jump on that bandwagon. It to my dying day, it'll be one of the proudest things that we've done because we've saved people's lives.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that, but
Yeah.
it's unbelievable the work that we've done and she's done through the Gelt Charitable Foundation and the Long Short Road in saving people's lives. It's unbelievable, and I'm so glad that I feel now the Jewish community and our leaders are starting to deal with these problems that we face head on instead of burying them. And I'm just thankful that we have a community that's standing up and addressing these.
And as you're saying it, and I'm wondering if there needs to be also similar kind of more collective effort on the personal finance piece, because even with mental health, there's so much I'm finding, unfortunately, because of the line of my work, that financial situations tend to lead to tremendous amount of stress, sometimes bordering into real problem mental health issues. And we shouldn't be there. We should be doing something to help each other, whether it's starting earlier with financial literacy. I don't know. There's so much more that could be done as a community.
I agree. I think it's absolutely critical. And this is when I started. I said, why I'm here because of you, because of your mission. I think we need to be teaching our boys and girls at a very young age, 10, pre-bar mitzvah,
Yeah.
pre-bat mitzvah, so they know, open a bank account, invest in it, 500 index fund.
Mm-hmm.
100% we should be teaching that. We should be teaching it of our young families getting married, the Hussein and Kalas getting married. They should be able to take finance classes. It's great. Look, it shouldn't be as important as a lot of the other stuff we teach, but I would argue in today's world, when everything is about finance, it's as important as some of the other stuff they're learning today. I
Yeah.
think it's
You know,
critical.
It's critical. It's a language, and we have to have the language in order to be comfortable with it. And it's something that we're going to have to deal with for the rest of our lives. And something to add to that, that I remember we had this discussion in the panel, and I think it was Mrs. Hines who brought it up. Maybe it was all of you at the panel, but this idea also of, how many people out there could be helping with financial not with the Jewish education, right? The cost of day school, which causes a tremendous amount of stress for people. And I actually had never, I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't thought about it like that, the way she presented it. Was it Barbara? I don't know, maybe it was you, I can't remember, but somebody presented it in the panel. Like, there's so much money out there. We need to be doing better to help so that families can afford this important thing. We can't just not give the children the education. It's not an option.
Yeah, look, I'm a believer, tremendous believer in a day school education. I think it's probably the number one issue to keep our people together.
Yeah.
And I believe that we are again, it sounds very stereotypical, but we're a wealthy society. And I believe the money is there. We just need to direct it a little bit better,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that what's going on in college campuses, that a lot of these philanthropists will redirect the money from having their name on a college building that bad stuff's happening and they're teaching bad stuff, or an art museum or a wing of this to them. Let them put it in educating our people. This is
Amen.
critical.
It's
I think it's the
critical.
number one. There's so many number one issues, but this is the top tier issue.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's so much money out there that could be channeled for the fundamental, which is Jewish education. So we hit on two very important points. Channeling more money, more of our money, and the money is there, to educating our kids, and also within our Jewish education system, putting a bigger emphasis on financial literacy. They're both super important.
I agree 100% with you.
Yeah.
100%.
So if somebody wants to join in this conversation or partner with us in some way, please reach out, because this is important. We have to tackle it some way. um, Talking about that relationship with money, any tips, Jack, to, again, because it's not just a financial literacy, it's also the relationship with it. Like, a lot of people maybe grew up with an unhealthy relationship with money. Whatever they saw at home, they have this, like, whatever it is, they come into this necessary relationship, because you're going to have to relate to it. You're going to have to deal with it, right? With a lot of baggage. So any tips from your perspective to have a healthier relationship with money? And I think you said your faith has helped, but any other tips?
A lot of it is very basic. Live under your means. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Don't care what the Joneses think. Don't care what your neighbors think. I was speaking to a guy a couple days ago, and the guy makes a living, but he's not affluent. And he tells me he's thinking about buying a watch. And I don't wear watches. I'm not into watches, but some watch, I don't even remember the name, for like 70 grand. And he was going to take out a loan because he
What?
thinks if he has this watch, he'll be able to pick up more business, more clients, because people think he's successful. I said,
Oh,
I said, are you Michigan? You're out of your mind. Don't do that. And I find a lot of people, they're chasing the bigger house, the bigger car.
yeah.
You go on Facebook, everyone's going on fancier vacations, everyone's outspending everyone,
Right.
especially with the simchas. And I know you just made a beautiful bar mitzvah, but I try. My wife and I try to live under our means.
Yeah.
Don't overspend. And we've made it a point to be savers and investors.
Nice.
And that's a central part of our life. So I
Yeah.
think it's hard. It's easy for me to say it. It's very easy to say, but until you walked in someone else's shoes who has the pressure, but you have to do what I found. For me, it helps to underspend, to live. I don't want to say I'm cheap or frugal, but I don't need to show off anyone. I don't want to watch. It's not my thing. Live understated,
Yeah.
understated.
I'm with you fully. It's so interesting, because I just ran, because of this bar mitzvah situation, people were asking me a lot of questions. So I ran a whole workshop, not just revealing what I spent, but actually walking people through how I make those decisions, why I'm choosing to spend on certain things and not in others, why it has to come from a place of this is a value for my family. It has nothing to do with what my community does, my sister-in-law does, my neighbor does. Like you have to look inward rather than constantly be looking outward, right? And
I agree with you. It's very hard in the society we live in. It's very hard to be able to fight it because it's a constant stream that
yeah,
is attacking you, whether it be through social media. Look, even you go on social media, whether you look or you don't look, you see the most beautiful people on. Even if you turn your head, you're still grams. This is not the real world. It's fake. Everyone with the plastic surgery and with this and that. You know what? I embrace my gray. I
right.
embrace my baldness. You know, you have to
Right.
somehow have the inner strength to embrace what Hashem gave you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Hashem made me overweight, gray, bald. What can I tell you? You know, it is what it is. It's hard to do it. It's very hard, but it takes an inner strength to do it.
Yeah, and also in raising kids, like you were saying before, we have to teach our kids to save, to invest, all these things. I often have conversations with parents that, Baruch Hashem, they're doing really well, and it's taken decades to get to this point, right? And now they're struggling with, the expectations of the children that are, maybe 18, 19. In a couple years, you're going to be marrying off their kids. And I tell them, like, you're setting them up for on when you guys started, when you guys got married, were you driving that car? Did you have that house? Did you have that? The answer is no, right? So why are you setting her up to think that in 2 years she's going to be married to someone who can provide for her at that level? You're setting them up for failure. It's not good.
You're 100% right. And unfortunately, we live in a society where everyone wants everything now. They don't
Yeah.
want to pay the price. They don't want to work 10 or 20 years to do it. They want it today. I know. It's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And I live with that challenge. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, if you set those expectations, you're always going to be unhappy. There's always going to be someone who's going to outspend you or out whatever it is.
That's right. That's
You have to
right.
be, you have to somehow be comfortable in your own shoes the best
That's
you
right.
can.
That's right. You remind me that when my girls went away for the first time, my girls study in high school in another state. I remember I had a conversation with them. I said, "This is how much you're getting every month, and this is going to happen all throughout your life. Some girls are going to have more than you. Some girls are going to have less than you. That's what it is. Like it's okay, but this is what works for our family."
100%. But it's again, it's a struggle. It comes down to betachanim. You have to have, you have to have firm roots. It's very hard, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's easier if you do.
Yeah, it comes out to bitachon. It comes out to clarity of the values that are, that the things that really, really are the essence. I think we get distracted by the glitz. So anyways, I like to wrap up all my interviews with what I call Jewish Money Matters fill in the blanks. And this is the part of the show where I'll give you an open-ended sentence and you'll finish it with the first thing that comes to mind. You're game for it?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. When I give meiser or tzedakah, I like to give to
Uh, Causes that help my people.
Jewish causes.
100%.
Very nice. Very nice. Do you like more institutional, or are you more of like individual? What's your
Well, I'm a little different. So we give a lot, and I give a lot to individuals, and some of it is outright gifts, but we also operate a gemach, and that's a constant thing. And they're to individuals, largely, sometimes to institutions,
wow.
largely to individuals. And then it's a combination. It's a combination. Look, what we did with suicide prevention was a perfect thing for me because what we did was we fueled it with some money and we gave it, and I feel we were able to influence other leaders. And I know of other institutions who jumped on the bandwagon because we were doing it. Some
Wow.
pretty high profile people started to realize that mental illness and suicide was a big thing within the Jewish community. And this wasn't something in another community. This was our problem. And
Right.
they needed to deal with it. So I feel whatever we spent on that, we spent a good amount of money, we got a lot out of it because other people took up the cause. So we rediverted that to other people. But we do everything from things like that. I'm a big supporter of lone soldiers and everyone in the IDF I love. And, we try to help. Look, you try to do what you can. And it's all not in the community. Many years ago, and this story stuck with me. We happened to have a lady who we knew who was a minority, and whatever, she got accepted to nursing school. She was a single mom. She didn't have money for clothes, for a car, or for daycare for her kid. And
Wow.
we supplied that. And again, she got the tuition free. She just needed money for a car, money, someone to watch. She had a little kid, and clothes. So we helped her, and she went on and became a nurse and is self-sufficient. So that was, I remember when we did it, and I felt so good because her life could have taken a different way. So
100%.
we try to help as many people as we can. We try to help. You can't help
So
everyone, unfortunately.
right, right, right. Unfortunately, when you mentioned gemach, you mean like free interest loans, that
Yeah,
type of gemach?
yeah.
Wow, wow, that's so special. Now, let me ask you this because I didn't grow up with, I feel like we all learned about tzedakah, obviously, as we're giving people, we're the children of Avram Avinu, it's in our DNA. But I don't know what happened in the Hebrew school curriculum, and I don't even know if it's so emphasized in the day school curriculum, but Meiser or Chomish in and of itself was not something that really made it into my system. Even if as a young professional, I'm actually writing a book about this because I remember being a young professional in Manhattan and I wish I had known about this, right? It's not something that made it into our financial literacy, into our Jewish literacy. How about you? Growing up, did you know to be careful about Meiser, Chomish, these kinds of things? Or,
I happen to have parents and grandparents who were very charitable people.
uh-huh,
They didn't have a ton of money, but I
right.
can
You don't
just
have,
remember walking down streets, and if there was a homeless guy, my father would give him $1 or buy him food. It was just sort of in my DNA. And for whatever reason, I like to help people. I really do. So it
mm-hmm,
just became in my DNA. And it
mm-hmm,
happens that it's important religious wise. So
right,
it wasn't a struggle for me. It
right,
wasn't, I enjoy it. I work to help people and give money to tzedakah. That's not,
right.
I get tremendous feeling of, I feel great when I help people.
Yes, and I agree with that. Same here. What I always share with listeners, and this is sort of embarrassing, but it's good for people to know, is that I think my method of giving, if you had spoken to me 20 years ago, was if I have and when I have, of course. And I was probably a quote unquote generous giver, right? But this idea, then when things took a downturn, well, I can't give now. This whole idea of no, I give first. This is what you do first was not really, that was a real switch for me. And I think it shifted a lot of things for me, not just in terms of faith, but also even in terms of bottom line.
Yeah, look, I can tell you when I give, it comes back, 10 times over.
Exactly.
And on our business, it's actually a line item in our budget. We have a budget,
Wow.
we have projections, and tzedakah is a line item, just like office rent and phones and payroll. So
Wow.
you have to make it part of your life. And look, I went through a very hard time when the recession hit in 2008 to
Yes.
2015 or so,
Same.
and I gave a lot less than I gave before.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do what you have to do. You have to survive, but you
Mm-hmm.
still, everyone does what they're comfortable. And there's other ways to give. There's other ways you can give your time. You can give your speak to someone, your shoulder, give someone a hug. There's many ways to give to people other
Yes.
than just writing a check. And I
Agree.
think, for me anyway, the non-monetary ways have been more meaningful. When you're in
Wow.
a restaurant and a waitress or a waiter's having a hard time, or you're just nice to someone, or someone's going through a hard time, you listen, you're compassionate, you let someone cry on your shoulders, you're non-judgmental, and that's for me, that's very important.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned it. And so much is our day-to-day life. Like you say, you go to the store, just welcome, just sometimes I mention to my kids, like, do you notice that people don't stop and say, how are you to the person checking you out at the counter? Like, stop. How are you? How's your day going? Give them a smile. Like that's a kindness that, and it's a kiddush Hashem, obviously, when they know that it's coming from a Jew.
Yeah,
But
very important, very easy. It's not hard. I mean, it doesn't cost money. It's just
it's
time. Be
it,
compassionate. Be
it's
compassionate.
it's free. Okay, I'd love to make more money because
I want to help more people.
yes, something I wish I'd learned about money growing up is
You can do a lot of good with it. It can bring you evil, but
mm,
you can do a lot of good with it as well.
yes, very nice. Money is spiritual or physical, or maybe it's both. What do you think?
I think it's a combination of both.
Hmm. Something I splurge on unapologetically is
Probably spending time with my wife on trips.
the cruises.
Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed. I probably shouldn't have said that on air.
Why? I think it's fabulous. I'm telling you, my husband came and told me. He's
It's
like,
the
Jack just told me this beautiful thing. They go every.
it's the truth, but I don't know. It's not something I probably should say.
I think it's
Oh,
excellent. I think it's an excellent marriage tip, by the way. It's investing in your relationship.
100%. It is what it is. So
No, no, no shame. Okay, I know the answer to this one. Spender or saver or investor. I think you're a saver investor, right? More than a
yes,
spender. Yeah.
100%.
You were always like a kid as a kid. Yeah, right? You told me.
I don't really get satisfaction out of material things. I'm not a foodie. I'm happy with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich every night, or tuna or egg salad. I'm not into cars. I'm not into clothing. I'm not into jewelry.
My
So
husband's the same.
I have nothing. There's nothing that I walk into a store or a mall. I physically want this.
Right, right,
Literally nothing.
right. What about your wife? Is she more of a spender?
No, my wife's very cheap, very
Really? She's
thrifty. She'll
frugal?
only buy clothes. She goes into the stores. She goes the half off, the half off, the half off racks.
Right.
She'll only buy it if it's a sale. She stocks up on gifts that are on sale because she
I
knows
love
she
it.
needs gifts. So we have a whole room in our house. She has a whole closet of gifts for everything, all kinds of things, because she'll buy something that's so cheap. And even the cruise, she'll only pay a certain amount. She knows what she wants to pay. And if she can't get it for that, forget it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Today I'm most grateful for.
Oh, I was my wife, my family. I was born at the luckiest time in civilization. I was
Mm.
born in the best place ever in civilization for a Jew. If you think about it, where has there ever been a time and a place to have such a good life for a Yid today? You could argue you could have born in Israel in 1970, but to be born, I was born in 1962 in the U.S. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I live at a time where we can celebrate largely our spiritualness, free and largely without harassment. We can put up menorahs, we can put up mezuzah, we can walk to shul and have a talis. But
So
whatever we
true.
do, we largely live in a fantastic society.
Yeah.
I was born at a time when we have our homeland again. We've yearned for it for thousands and thousands of years to live at a time. I know there's soreness in Israel, but it's still unbelievable. We have an army. We're looked upon with envy on the world. I really believe in 1,000 years, they're going to be talking about this time as a miracle.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah,
What's going on in Israel, the past since its independence is nothing short of a miracle.
I think the people who are sensitive to a deeper reality already recognize that we're living in messianic times. We really, really are. And it's not going to take 1,000 years for people to realize Mashiach is coming.
I'm ready and I believe it. There's no other explanation. So I have
Yeah,
so much to be thankful
yeah,
for. So much.
yeah.
It's crazy the amount of blessing.
I'm so glad you brought it up because sometimes we could get so, I don't know, tunnel vision with the darkness. And if we zoom out and we realize, no, 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 these are amazing times. We are a generation that is experiencing just a revolution of light and goodness and possibility. It's yes, there's negatives, there's always going to be darkness, but there's so much good. And And we have to focus on that because we have to stay focused on the goal,
100%. It's hard, as you say, but we have to do our best.
Yeah, yeah. And finally, I'm Jack Miller, and I believe Jewish money matters because
the reality is money, we need money to survive. And while you don't need it exclusively to help other people, it's part of it. And money, gives you a certain amount of freedom and takes some worry off your cup. And it's just important to society, and it's important to do the best you can. And you need to have control of money, and you need to have a good understanding of it.
Beautifully said. Jack Miller, thank you so much. Thank you for all these insights, for everything you're doing for the Jewish people, with the foundation, and with your incredible work at Gelt Financial. Tell everybody where we can find you, connect with you, follow you.
Check us out at geltfinancial.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn or anywhere, really, H. Jack Miller. And looking forward to it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you.